Thanks for the introduction. I'm Baptiste Lepers, and today I will talk about the design and implementation of a key value store for fast drives. This is joint work with Ona Balmo and Willis Van Oppel from the Uni of Sydney and Karan Gupta from Nutanix. In this talk, I will focus on the three main operations performed by key value stores, which are to put a key and a value in the database, to get the value associated with the key, and to scan a range of keys, which returns all the keys within that range and their associated values. I will also focus on key value stores that persist data on disk so that they do not lose data in case of a crash, and where the dataset does not fully fit in memory. Many key value stores have been designed for this context, but most of them have been designed for slow drives. However, if you look at the evolution of disk speed, as shown on these graphs, you can see that the speed of disks has dramatically increased in the past few years. So from disks that could read and write at a few hundred megabytes per second, we now have disks that can read and write at over 2 gigabytes per second. And what's more interesting is that disks can now perform random accesses very fast. So on an Optane drive released in 2018, for instance, random reads are only 10% slower than sequential reads, and random writes have the same speed as sequential writes. And in this talk, I will argue that existing key value stores perform poorly on these disks for fundamental design reasons in the way they lay out and access data on disk, and I will present a new design for fast drives. But first, let's look at existing designs. So existing key value stores usually use one of two designs, the log structure merge tree, also called the LSM, and the B+ trees. LSMs are used, for instance, by Cassandra, RocksDB, or LevelDB, and B+ trees are used by WireTiger, the main storage engine of MongoDB, and by TokuMX, the storage engine of Percona. So let's look at LSMs first. This graph shows the I/O bandwidth that RocksDB is able to use on the y-axis over time on the x-axis. And we launch a very simple workload consisting of 50% gets and 50% puts on an Optane drive. And what we can see is that RocksDB, on average, uses about a third of the available bandwidth. And the reason for that is very simple, as shown on this graph, which shows the CPU utilization over time on this same benchmark, is that RocksDB becomes CPU bound before becoming I/O bound. So log structure merge trees are very complex data structures, but for the purpose of this talk, you only need to know that they have a memory component and a disk component. The data is ordered by key, both in memory and on disk. The memory component is used to buffer updates, and when it is full, it is flushed to disk. And historically, this has been a very nice property because the flush can be done doing one large sequential write. However, you cannot just flush RAM components indefinitely because this would cause the database to grow and grow and grow indefinitely. So RAM components needs to be merged into the main data structure of the database. And this operation is done in the background and is called doing a compaction. And when we profile RocksDB, what we see is that it spends a huge percentage of its time doing compactions. Most notably, it spends over 60% of its time doing merges and creating indexes for the ordered data structure on disk. And what's even more interesting, if you recall the bandwidth over time of RocksDB, is that it fluctuates quite a lot. So as you can see on this graph, the bandwidth used by RocksDB has peaks and valleys. And these peaks and valleys correlate quite a lot with the throughput of RocksDB, so the number of requests per second that RocksDB is able to handle. Whenever there is a peak in bandwidth, there is a drop in throughput. And this is due to compactions. So whenever RocksDB flushes a RAM component, it then needs to merge it. And this merge operation eats away CPU cycles and causes the throughput to drop. So historically, compactions have been well known to create I/O issues and disk issues, but now they also create CPU issues. The same is true for B+ trees. They have a very low average throughput because of inefficiencies in their code path, most notably contention on shared data structures. And they also suffer from high performance fluctuation because they buffer operations. So So from these experiments, we have learned three main lessons: that ordering data is expensive and should be avoided, and that contention on chain data structure can be expensive. Both of these are responsible for existing key-value stores to be CPU bound and explain their low average throughput. Existing key-value stores also use large buffer to amortize. They delay operation to the main data structure to amortize the cost of updating the structure on disk. And these delays, this buffering, cause performance fluctuations. So if these three properties are bad, then we beg the question how to design an efficient key-value store for very fast drive, and that's where our contribution comes. So we have three main key ideas. The first one is that since ordering is expensive, we keep data unsorted on disk. We also want to avoid contention, so we adopt a shared nothing architecture. And large buffers are known to create fluctuations, so we adopt the extreme approach of having absolutely no buffering in the database. And in the remainder of this talk, I will go through these three key ideas in turn. So the first key idea is to keep data unsorted on disk. This idea stems from the observation that disks can now perform random accesses very fast. So traditionally, key-value stores have kept data sorted on disk for scans, because if you keep data sorted, you can do scans doing large sequential reads. But there is no longer an incentive to do so on these fast drives. So we keep data unsorted on disk. Our approach is inspired by in-memory slab allocators. We have one file per item size. And when we put a key and a value, we first compute this size of the item to figure out in which file to write it. And then we write the item in the first free available spot in the file. Because we write keys randomly, we still need an index to remember their location on disk, and this index is stored in memory. The index contains all the keys, all the prefixes of the keys in the database and their location. This index is ordered to allow scan. So when we perform a scan, we read the index, and then we issue read queries to the database, and these read queries are completely random. The second key idea is to adopt a shared nothing architecture. So for this, we use the simple approach of sharding the database. So we have n independent workers, and these workers work on different key ranges. We do not really suffer from load imbalance because the number of workers is very small. So every worker has its own index and own files. There is absolutely no sharing between workers. The only operation that requires querying multiple workers are scans. So to perform scans, we query all the workers for the range of keys we want to scan, and then we issue read requests to the different workers. The third key idea is to remove buffering. So traditionally, whenever an update comes in a database, it is written in a page cache, but then the write to disk only happens after some delay. In Gvel, what we do is we still have a page cache because memory is faster than disks, so we have a page cache to cache reads, but we do not buffer writes. So whenever we have an update, we update the value in memory, but the update is immediately propagated to disk. And the put call only completes when the value has been persisted to disk. There are obviously a few implementation challenges associated with this design, and most of the implementation challenges stems from the fact that the CPU budget per request is very small, on the order of a few thousand cycles per request. So we have to shave everything we can in order to achieve good performance. Most notably, we have to be very aware of system call calls. We have to use very efficient data structures, and we also have to manage the queue length of disks to make sure that disks are always have some work pending. All the details are in the paper. Unfortunately, I don't have time to present them in this talk, but if you want to talk about them, I will be happy to. So I will now go to the evaluation. So in this talk, I will just present the results on one machine. This machine has an Optane drive, which can do 500K IOPS and read and write at 2 gigabytes per second. I will focus on one database which contains 100 million elements, as it is 100 gigabytes. And so only 1/3 of the database fits in RAM. And I will compare our performance against RocksDB, PebblesDB. Both of these are LSMs, WiredTiger, and TokuMX. Both of these are B-trees. So on these graphs, you can see the throughput, the average throughput of the various solutions. The graph on the left shows the throughput on the YCSB benchmarks that are mostly point queries, so gets and puts. And the graph on the right shows performance on YCSB-E, which is mostly scans. The y-axis are different because scans are way more expensive than point queries. On all point queries workloads, Gvel performs between 2 and 6 times better than existing solutions. And on scans, it has the same performance as RocksDB, which is the best performing solution. That might actually sound surprising because we do much more work for scans. Like for us, scans mean we jump randomly in the database, while for RocksDB, it's just 1 sequential read. And despite us doing way more random work, we are on average as fast as RocksDB. I will also point out that Gvel runs at disk bandwidth, and actually 75% of CPU time is idle time for us. So as disks become faster, Gvel will actually, the difference between Gvel and its competitors will actually increase. I would also like to zoom in the performance of scans. So if you look at averages, it's true that we have approximately the same performance as RocksDB. But if you look at details of throughput over time, as shown on this graph, the picture is very different. So Gvel has a very steady throughput, while the performance of RocksDB fluctuates quite a lot. Actually, the performance of RocksDB drops to less than 2,000 scans per second, even though the YCSB-E workload is a read-mostly workload. So it does 95% scans and only 5% writes. So if you have SLA guarantees in your data centers, probably that's the number you care about. And in that context, Gvel is actually a much better solution. These fluctuations also translate into latencies. So in all existing key-value stores, we observe stalls and latency spikes of more than 10 seconds, while Gvel, the maximum latency we observe is in the order of 4 milliseconds. So Gvel also offers way better tail latency guarantees. In the papers, we have a more extensive evaluation. Most notably, we study limitations. We study what happens when the index does not fully fit in memory. We also study the performance of scans for very small items, where we do way more random accesses than existing solutions. We also study the performance on much bigger machines. So AWS has machines with 8 NVMEs that can in total do 15 gigabytes per second, and we have a much bigger data set, 5 terabytes. We also study production workloads from Nutanix, and much more. But for this talk, I would like to end with a few takeaway messages. The first one is that ordering data on disk is expensive and now has very little benefit, and that buffering updates to the main data structures on disk is expensive and creates big fluctuation in performance, and that now optimizing for CPU utilization is key. The code is available on GitHub, and we have scripts to reproduce results. This is by all means a research prototype, but we think it's pretty stable. We have tested it in the past few months. We have done over 1,000 billion updates in the database. We had no crash, no data loss. So if you want to prototype in your data centers or trade, we would be happy to get some feedback. And I'm now ready to take questions. Thank you.
Simple speaker. Questions?
So Ethan Miller, UC Santa Cruz. It's really nice work. One question I do have is about, you had recovery on the last slide, and you didn't talk much about how you handle crashes in the middle of an update. And the reason I mention this is that I know that for Mongo, for example, when we pulled out the crash recovery code because we said, look, you get a response back, it's done, it got about 3 times faster. So that may be one of the issues holding the other ones back. I'd be curious to know what Kvel does for crash recovery and how it prevents it.
So the way recovery works is, first of all, we timestamp all items we write. So every item is prefixed by a timestamp, and if the item spawns multiple blocks on disk, every block is prefixed by a timestamp. So to recover, we just scan the whole database, and surprisingly, this is very fast on disk because these disks have a very high bandwidth. And then we compare timestamps, like if timestamps mismatch, we discard items, and we keep the most recent version.
And that works for partial writes as well? In other words, you wrote half of an update, but not the whole
Yes,
thing?
yes.
Hi, I'm John Osterhout from Stanford. If I did my mental math right, it looks like your system, although you're getting way better performance than the other systems, it looks like you're only using about 1/3 of the bandwidth of your disks. If that's right, I'm curious, have you looked to see why, given that you're disk bound, why aren't you able to use the full bandwidth of the disk?
You are saying that we only use 1/3?
That's what it appeared to me from the figures, yes.
We actually use the full bandwidth. And the reason is, for every read, we have to read the full page, which is 4K. So that might explain why.
All right, let's. Is there any other questions? Keith?
Yeah, sure. Keith Smith from NetApp. I was just curious about, you talked about CPU utilization, I guess, in the aggregate or an average. How is it on scan operations? Because it seems, spreading a scan across multiple nodes and working through an index rather than just issuing a range read on one node is going to be a lot more work.
So in our case, we are still disk bound for scans, but it's true that scans are expensive operations for us because we need to merge indexes. Right now, the code path for the merge is not very optimized, but it's still enough. So there is, as disks go faster, maybe we would need to optimize that a bit, but so far it's enough. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
All right, let's thank the speaker again.